On an old farm near the woods lived a father, a stepmother, and 2 young children, Hansel and Gretel. A drought had come over the land, leaving the dirt hard as a rock and the grass the color of hay. The crops that had grown before the drought were now left limp and gray in death. Unable to grow any new crop, having to eat some of the livestock, and unable to feed the rest enough to sell, there was no source of income for the family, leaving them hungry and poor. The father wasn't sure how he was to feed his 2 children, the only pieces of his first wife he had left, let alone his new wife and himself. Day after day he consulted his wife with these troubles. What am I to do? How are we to survive? The stepmother, who did not care for the children since the moment they met, grew tired of her husband's remarks and said to him, "We shall send Hansel and Gretel deep into the woods alone to gather wood. I'm certain they will get lost and rid us of the responsibility to feed them." The father protested such an idea. How could he abandon his children whom he loved dearly? After weeks of refusing, but still incapable of providing any other plan to avoid starvation of at least himself and his wife, the father agreed to the stepmother's plan. At sunrise the next morning, the stepmother woke the 2 children. "We're to go and fetch wood," she said to them. "Here's 1 piece of bread for each of you to last the day." While the children were walking across the barren lands towards the woods, Hansel told Gretel that he would crumble his piece of bread to leave a path out, and when they became hungry, they would share her piece of bread. Reaching the entrance to the woods, the children stopped. Hansel broke his bread into small pieces, left 1 piece in his hand, and put the rest into his pocket. Once further into the woods, but still able to see their home, Hansel left the first piece on the ground. After walking quite some time, the children grew tired. Hansel suggested that the 2 of them rest before having to gather the heavy wood he carried all the way back home. Knowing that her and Hansel should complete the task at hand and be on their way home before the sun began to set, Gretel still agreed to rest before gathering the wood. Resting on a fallen tree, the children mindlessly fell into a deep sleep. Awaking to the moon overhead, Gretel was terrified and began to cry. Hansel assured her that with the moon shining brightly above them, they would still be able to see the path he had made. They would go home and explain what had happened. Surely their father and stepmother would just be glad that they had made it home. Traveling in the direction from which they had come, the path Hansel had left could not be found. The birds of the woods had eaten the bread trail as the children were sleeping. Realizing this, Gretel began to weep once more. Hansel took the bread from her apron, sat her down, and told her to eat. After calming down, Gretel gave her brother what was left of the piece of bread, and the children sat while he ate. When Hansel was finished, the siblings began to walk once more. As they continued their walk, the children began to hear strange noises. A growl, a howl, the snap of a twig, the hoot of an owl. Hansel told Gretel to calmly continue walking. If they did not run or show fear, they would not be harmed, and the creators of the strange noises would leave them be. But Hansel knew it was a lie. He only wanted to keep his sister from crying or running and drawing more attention to where they were. Seconds later, catching the moon reflecting in a set of eyes upon them from behind a bush sent both Hansel and Gretel in a stupor of fear as they raced through the woods. At each turn, a pair of large reflecting eyes was there to greet them. All the children could do was run and pray for some kind of escape. Only the sight and song of a beautiful white bird sitting on a branch took Hansel and Gretel out of their stupor of fear. When it finished its song, the bird began to fly away. Enchanted by the bird's song and filled with a renewed sense of hope that they would be led out of danger and back home, Hansel and Gretel felt compelled to follow. When the bird stopped, the sun was beginning to rise, and the children had come across a clearing in the woods. In the middle sat a house made of gingerbread and topped with sweets, framings made of icing, windows of sugar, and a gumdrop pathway. With grumbling stomachs, the children ignored all instinct to stay away and approached the house. Hansel went for the gingerbread roof, and Gretel carved a piece out of a window. Not long after, a voice came from within asking who was eating the house. The children, paying no attention, did not hear the voice and continued to eat. Suddenly, the door opened, and a beautiful young woman appeared. The children, in shock, stood in front of her with open mouths. The woman kindly invited the children inside to tell her how they had come to be this far in the woods, and promised them a delicious meal and many more sweets. Unable to resist the woman's beauty and apparent nurturing ways, which the children had not experienced before, as the mother had died when they were young, and they were only left with the cold stepmother, the children succumbed to her promises and followed her inside. But this woman is not the beautiful and charming one she appears to be. She has the reflecting eyes behind the bush. She is the songbird. She is the witch parents tell their children of at bedtime, the witch who can smell children when they enter the woods, the witch who lures children to her home and feeds them until they are plump, and then reveals who she really is. Then she cooks them, having only a taste of the delicious meat, instructing the rest to serve herself and the other children that she knows will come. Once Hansel and Gretel are behind the locked doors, the beautiful woman lays out the meats and breads and vegetables she has prepared for dinner. She tells them how she enjoys having others in her home, and if they stay, she will cook for them every day and take care of them as a mother would, and tells them they can give her their final decision after dessert. Not wanting to deny the young woman right away and hurt her feelings, Hansel and Gretel accept the chance to have dessert and contemplate her offer. Loving it so much, the children devour 2 servings of the fresh sweet cakes with syrup and other delicious toppings and decide to stay, falling into the same trap as so many children before them. Each day is the same. The children wait to a delicious breakfast, keep them in company, and eat small snacks until it is time for another large supper. They are never made to help with anything or keep active. After weeks, the children are nice and round and barely able to leave their beds. One night, with the children finally unable to escape, the woman ventured outside with the moon overhead and gathered some firewood. When the woman returned, she fired up her large oven and made her way to the children who were deep in slumber. With the wood crackling and the oven mouth open and flames hungry for children to cook, the conniving woman spread butter and seasoning on the children as gently as possible so as not to wake them. When the children do wake, they find themselves tied to a large cooking table in front of the fiery oven, with the woman humming over them in her true horrid form as she adds the final touches to their seasoning. Without hesitation, both Hansel and Gretel begin to cry. They know that there is no way out. With their large round bodies, it is not possible for them to sneak off of the tables and away from the witch. They will never see their farm, their father, or each other again. Still humming and wearing a fake frown and sad eyes, the witch waves and shoves the children into the oven with one push. Relaxing at the table nearby with screams in the background, the witch lets out a laugh and revels in her success. Not that far away, the father is left in misery. Each day his remorse for abandoning his children grows. There is no escape from his sorrows and the never-ending complaints of hunger and no money from his wife. Not able to bear it anymore, the father takes his own life and leaves his wife to starve or to do the same.